Rendered images are a great way to capture and display the magnificence of your finished project. In this tutorial we will cover how to transfer your finished Revit file into 3ds Max, add cameras, lighting and backgrounds, and then render an image from this camera in the cloud. This will be done in 3ds Max 2017 and Revit 2019. The first step is to open the Revit file you want to transfer to 3ds Max. Here I have one of my old projects I'll be using for the demonstration. Once your project is opened in Revit, you then click on the Files tab in the top left corner. In the drop-down, select Export and choose the FBX option. This is the file type used for 3ds Max. You can now choose a place to save this file so you can open it later in 3ds Max. Once done, you can now close Revit and open up 3ds Max. When 3ds Max opens, it will ask you to select a type of template. You can close this. You do not need a template, we will be using the default settings. Next, you need to select the viewpoint for your project. If you only have one screen like mine, you're already set. But if you instead have 4 screens, you need to go to the bottom right box, called Default Shading. Go to the top left corner and select the little cross, and select Maximize Viewpoint. This brings up default shading to cover your whole screen. And this is the default settings for 3ds Max, and this is what we will be using. Next, go to the top left corner and select the 3 Max button. In its drop down, click Import and find your file in the pop-up. When opened, a pop-up will appear. You can just click OK. After that, a warning will appear. This is just telling you that the 3D view option in Revit is not available in 3ds Max. You can simply close this or click OK. You can now see your Revit project in 3ds Max. Don't worry about the lack of colour, it will appear again in the rendered images. To get rid of the marks on your building, simply left click next to it. Finally, if there are any cameras in your file, go ahead and delete these by simply left clicking on it and selecting delete on your keyboard. We are doing this so you can learn to put in your own later, so you can do it in future projects. So if we went straight into trying to render this house, it would turn out black since there is no artificial or natural lighting. Be aware that some Revit files may have interior or exterior lighting. If this is the case for your file, go ahead and delete the light sources so you can learn how to make them yourself. First, go to the right hand side toolbar and click on the far right option with the 2 gears on it. This is Systems. Here you can see a daylight button. Go ahead and select this. A pop-up will appear. You can click Don't Show This Message Again and close it. Your mouse will now turn into a crosshair. Go and click on the center of your project and drag out. A star shape will begin to appear. You need to make sure that your whole project is inside the star shape, as this is where the sun's light will shine. Once you release your mouse, another pop-up will appear, and you can click Yes. Then, without clicking again, slowly drag upwards, and a sun will now appear. Move it to the height you would like, and then click next to it. Make sure you understand that once you click off your sun, you cannot reselect it and access its options. To change where the sun points, to help in creating shadows, select the manual option right under Control Parameters. This is the first step in allowing you to freely move your sun. Next, right click on your sun and select Move. This will cause the X, Y and Z arrows to appear. You can now move the sun by clicking and dragging on the arrow in the direction you want your sun to go. Remember, if you deselect the sun before you have clicked manual, you will have to start the process again since you will not be able to move it and access its options. Now that your sun is positioned correctly, you can add a still background. Click on the rendering tab at the top of the screen. In the drop down, select Environment. It's near the center. In the pop-up, select the Environment Map tab. This is under the Background section. Make sure the Use Map button is selected with the tick. In the new pop-up Material/Map browser, select Bitmap. It is under General. You can open it by just clicking once on General and it will give you the option. Through clicking on Bitmap, it will redirect you to your file so you can find an image you want to use as your background, and you can get one of these off the internet. If clicking on the image brings up an error, you'll have to go back and select another one. When you open this image into your file, nothing will change on your screen. It will remain grey. But when you go to render your project, the background will appear in your finished rendered image. Finally, to add cameras to your project, you need to go to the same right hand side toolbar. There's a camera icon in the second row from the top. Click on this. Under object type, there are 3 types of cameras you can select. Each option is very similar, but I find the target camera the easiest to use. This is because it's the easiest to move and position where it targets in your file. To place the camera, you hold down the left mouse button where you want the camera to be placed. It does not matter where at this point. You then drag a small box to the area you want it to face. This is its target. The camera will move around this target and always keep looking at it. You then release the left click to end this process. Next, you right click next to the camera to bring up the same X, Y and Z arrows. You can use these to position your camera. This can be a bit tricky, so use different viewpoints to help in maneuvering it. The camera's view is represented by the large square. You can check this by clicking on Perspectives in the top left of your work screen. In the drop-down, select Cameras, and then click on Camera 001. This now only shows the camera's view on the screen, and you can make sure you're happy with how it is angled before you do your rendered image. If you're not happy with how the camera is angled, go back to the top left corner, click on Camera 001, and then Perspective. You can now move around again. Back in this setting, you can reposition your camera by clicking on the same X, Y and Z arrows, and also by selecting the small box and moving where its target is facing. Finally, to name the camera, go to the left hand side toolbar. By selecting the camera, it will become highlighted in the toolbar. Click once with the left mouse button and the name will become highlighted blue. You can now type in a more appropriate name. To now render from this camera, you again need to select the rendering tab at the top of the screen. Go down and click Render in Cloud. You need to make sure you have an Autodesk account before you can render in Cloud. A pop-up will appear where you can now change the settings of your rendered image. Near the center of this pop-up, there will be a tab that says No Camera Selected. Go down and select your camera. This is the view from the camera we created earlier. Underneath this, there are the render settings. Render quality and image size affect how good your image will look. Better the render quality and larger the image size, the better the final image. Adjust these as you like. You can then click Render in the top right corner. This will redirect you to your Autodesk gallery where you can see your finished rendered image. This is what your Autodesk gallery will look like. You then go select View Project, and this is where you'll be able to see your finished rendered images.